After 36 soldiers have been killed, questions are growing about whether the IDF is beginning to feel the human and political cost of its campaign in Lebanon, and whether those losses are undermining public confidence and operational momentum at home. Observers are asking if this campaign in Lebanon is approaching a breaking point, as mounting casualties, international pressure, and logistical strains combine to test Israel's willingness and capacity to sustain the conflict. Analysts warn that Israel's war in Lebanon has entered a dangerous new phase, marked by more intense frontline fighting, expanded objectives, and a higher risk of broader regional escalation. Deep beneath the surface, a brutal underground fight continues inside an elaborate Iran-built fortress, a subterranean battleground where tunnels and bunkers have turned the conflict into a grueling close-quarters war. Dozens of Hezbollah fighters now find themselves trapped after the IDF seized control of a strategically important, fortified compound, leaving militants isolated inside a maze of defenses as Israeli forces consolidate their hold. Israeli forces say they have effectively cornered dozens of Hezbollah fighters inside a sprawling underground tunnel complex near Tebnit, trapping militants in a maze of passages and bunkers beneath the village. Local Israeli outlets reported that the tunnel network extends for more than 1 kilometer under the village, a subterranean web that provides fighters with deep shelters and concealed movement routes. Ground troops encountered heavy resistance as they clashed with Hezbollah fighters in fierce engagements, both on the surface and deep inside the tunnel system, turning the fight into simultaneous above and below-ground battles. The Hebrew Daily Ma'ariv reported that roughly 30 Hezbollah operatives remain trapped within the compound, isolated in the subterranean network as Israeli units work to seal escape routes and secure the area. Trapped fighters allegedly resorted to launching mortar barrages from within the tunnel hub, firing at advancing IDF positions in a bid to slow the Israeli advance and cover possible withdrawal attempts. Sources say Hezbollah forces even launched unmanned aerial drones from within the besieged stronghold, using the compound as a covert platform to surveil and strike at nearby Israeli units. The IDF characterized the captured complex as a major Hezbollah headquarters in southern Lebanon, claiming it served as a command node coordinating operations across the frontier region. Commanders say the operation's objective was to dismantle a long-standing threat to northern Israeli towns and villages by removing a fortified hub used to plan and launch cross-border attacks. Intense fighting persisted even after initial gains, with Israeli units tightening their cordon and systematically clearing access points as pockets of resistance flared inside and around the tunnel hub. Military analysts view the subterranean stronghold as a central element of Hezbollah's southern command network, a fortified node that linked logistics, weapons storage, and field command functions. At the same time, Haaretz reports that 36 Israeli officers and soldiers have been killed since the conflict with Hezbollah escalated, underscoring the human cost of the wider campaign in Lebanon. Those military losses come amid roughly 3 months of sustained fighting in Lebanon, a period marked by repeated clashes, strikes, and operations that have steadily driven up the casualty toll. On June 20th, the IDF announced that Staff Sergeant Ni Ben Ari was killed during combat operations in southern Lebanon. His death marked the 5th reported Israeli military fatality since the ceasefire with Hezbollah came into effect. The announcement followed the deaths of 4 other Israeli soldiers in the same operational theater a day earlier. The latest casualties highlighted the persistent security threats facing Israeli forces along the Lebanon front. Clashes have continued despite diplomatic efforts aimed at preserving and stabilizing the ceasefire agreement. Iran and the US appear prepared to resume negotiations even as tensions remain elevated over the continued closure of the Strait of Hormuz. The diplomatic effort gained urgency after Iran maintained restrictions on traffic through the Strait of Hormuz despite the recent agreement. US Vice President J.D. Vance traveled to Switzerland on June 20th as Washington sought to restart direct engagement with Tehran. An Iranian delegation also arrived in Switzerland as both sides attempted to build on the framework established by the Memorandum of Understanding. Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and Army Chief Asim Munir are expected to participate as mediators during the talks. The talks are taking place while Iran continues to keep the Strait of Hormuz closed to commercial maritime traffic. Iranian officials linked the closure to alleged ceasefire violations and ongoing Israeli military activity in Lebanon. Tehran has presented the measure as leverage intended to ensure full compliance with the terms of the agreement. A directive cited by Iran International reportedly instructed media outlets to promote a unified national approach on the issue. Editors were reportedly told not to portray Hormuz closure and diplomatic negotiations as contradictory strategies. IRGC-affiliated Tasnim argued that the Strait of Hormuz should remain closed despite the resumption of negotiations. The outlet claimed that reopening the strategic waterway at this stage would amount to a major strategic error for Tehran. Tasnim argued that at least $12 billion in frozen Iranian assets should be released before any reopening takes place. The outlet also called for U.S. waivers permitting Iranian oil exports to be fully implemented before further concessions. Tasnim further insisted that Israel must withdraw from its positions in Lebanon before Hormuz is reopened. The outlet argued that every commitment contained in the Iran-US memorandum must be fulfilled before the waterway is restored to normal operations. Meanwhile, Iran's chief negotiator issued a message ahead of the Switzerland talks, signaling Tehran's position before discussions begin. Mohammed Bagher Ghalibaf said, and I quote, "I consider the innocent children of Minab and all the martyrs of dear Iran to be watching over my every action and behavior at every moment. They see us and expect things of us. God forbid that I should ever bring shame to the innocent martyrs and the people of Iran, and that I should join my companions with a clear conscience. Companions for whose reunion I eagerly await." Unquote.
Looking forward to starting the technical talks with the Iranians, the Pakistanis, and the Qataris. Our understanding is that the Iranians just landed. The Qataris and Pakistanis and some of our technical negotiators are still on the ground. So look, we'll have a couple days of talks. We're going to get this thing kicked off in the right way. There's a lot to discuss, but we're going to go through it all.
Fighting in Lebanon to upend the entire process. What does your plan do about that?
Well, Marco and the entire team have been actively managing what's going on in Lebanon. Despite the headlines, things are actually getting better there. Things are calmed down a little bit. It's going to be something we're just going to have to continuously manage to ensure that, Israel and Lebanon are both safe and secure. That's fundamentally the goal of this, is to make the whole region safe and secure. The big problem is that you have somebody will shoot and then somebody will respond, and you kind of have a chicken leg problem where you just got to stop the scene for long enough to get the ceasefire to hold. That's what we're going to try to do. We'll keep on working at it, but things have gotten better.
What do you look for just thinking about your schedule or something like what would make it a successful trip for you?
Well, I think number one, just getting things set up in the right way and getting the actual structure of the negotiation in place. So the way that we're going to do this is that we're going to have a principal level political leadership at the top, and then obviously the technical team is going to stay on the ground. And what I like to say is what appears to be a beautiful place. I can only be there for a day or two. I think we're hopefully making progress on the nuclear issue, making progress on the Lebanon ceasefire issue. Those are the two big things that I think we're going to be focused on. I'm sure the Iranians are going to have issues they'd like to discuss as well. We'll see you guys on the other side. Thank you.
Meanwhile, Trump warned that the US could impose tolls related to Hormuz transit if a final agreement with Iran is not reached within 60 days. Donald Trump said, and I quote, "There will be no tolls in the Hormuz Strait for 60 days during the ceasefire period. And there will be no tolls after the 60-day period has expired, unless they are imposed by and for the United States of America. Should the deal not be completed, for services rendered as the guardian angel to the countries of the Middle East for purposes of both past, present, and future reimbursement of costs." Unquote. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is reportedly still working to influence the contours of the final US-Iran agreement, determined to shape its outcome even as the framework moves forward. His efforts have continued despite President Donald Trump already signing a memorandum of understanding with Tehran, signaling that the Israeli leader does not view the interim document as the final word on Iran policy. Under the terms of the memorandum, the agreement has triggered a 60-day negotiation window between Washington and Tehran, during which both sides are expected to hammer out a comprehensive final pact. Netanyahu is said to believe that Iran will ultimately refuse to accept meaningful, enforceable limits on its nuclear program, a conviction that fuels his skepticism and his determination to press for tougher conditions. According to coverage by CNN, the Israeli leader is actively trying to shape the debate inside Washington, D.C. over the emerging deal, seeking to influence how American policymakers and the public perceive its risks and benefits. Reports say the Prime Minister is working through conservative media figures and pro-Israel lawmakers in Congress, leveraging long-standing relationships to amplify criticism and raise doubts about the agreement's terms. Prominent pro-Israel podcaster Mark Levin has denounced the deal as a slush fund for reconstruction, arguing that the financial components risk empowering Tehran rather than constraining it. Netanyahu is also expected to lobby friendly senators directly to voice concerns and push for stricter oversight, using Capitol Hill as an additional line of pressure on the Trump administration as negotiations with Iran continue.